Welcome to the Black Educated Tea podcast where we have conversations on how Black women navigate through life and education. I'm your host, Makeda Marine. I'm a life coach and strategic consultant. In this safe space and in this podcast, we have conversations on how we balance and navigate through life, education, corporate America, entrepreneurship, motherhood, love, just so many topics. It's just endless. Please join us for the Black Educated Tea podcast so you can be a part of these magnificent conversations. Welcome to the Black Educated Tea podcast. I'm your host, Makeda Marie, and today's topic is love languages. But, as always, before we get into the tea, let's get into this tea. So, your girl is just drinking a raspberry leaf and peppermint today. Nothing fancy, nothing major, nothing outrageous, just a simple peppermint and raspberry leaf tea. I have those phases and those moments, and depending on what kind of vibe I'm in, I may just want to do a tea that has all different kind of teas in it. But I was like, for today, I just want something that's really soothing, really smooth, but also very minty because, peppermint is definitely has that mint to it. Semi-sweet as well because raspberry leaf is not as sweet, but the peppermint is. So they're a really good combination. So I'm just drinking a peppermint raspberry leaf tea, but both of them have really good benefits in it. So let's get into this about love languages. So there are really 5 love languages. Some people say 7, some say even more. But there's a whole book dedicated out there called The 5 Love Languages. And that book is actually I've read it several times, by Gary Chapman. So really good book, and it talks about the 5 love languages. So I'm going to give them to you. Now, I used to know these by heart, but, I have so much going on right now. Some days I can't even remember, what did I eat earlier today? What did I eat yesterday? What did I do today? What did I do yesterday? So I got to look this up because my memory is not what it used to be. But that's where the raspberry leaf tea comes in. It's really good for memory. But the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And so I know what my love language is. Mine is words of affirmation. And it's a really good thing to know what your love language is because some people are more the physical touch. Some people are all about receiving those gifts. Some people, as myself, we're all about words of affirmation. So you have to know what your love language is in order to receive that particular love. So if you actually read the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman, he goes into a lot of different details on what each love language looks like. And, how do you know that this is your love language? Because it took me years to figure out what my love language was because I thought that mine was receiving gifts. I really did. And you can actually have a couple of love languages together. So it's not to say that I'm just strictly words of affirmation because I am definitely a gift person as well. But if I had to go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, number 1 would definitely be words of affirmation and number 2 would be gifts because I still love gifts. Who doesn't? But I thought for years that my love language was receiving gifts. So, when I would get gifts, I would get really giddy and really excited by it. But then I started to notice several years ago that when I would just get poems or when I would get, cards that had these different words in it, or when I would hear certain words, and how I would it would do something to me it would do more to me than when I would get a gift. So I could get a gift and it cost X amount of money. And it just did not do for me what those particular words would do for me. So that's when I realized, you know what? I think I'm more of a words of affirmation. That's my love language. Because if I'm hearing the right words, you're saying the right things to me, it's just certain words for me, it just does it. And it just makes my day just flow so smoothly compared to a gift. I'm not turning down a gift because I still love a gift, but you have to know what your love language is so you can tell others as well. Because what I used to do before I knew exactly what my love language was, like when I would get gifts and, I would get excited and there was all the thank yous and this and that, but it wasn't the same. I guess the people that would give me the gifts, my reaction probably wasn't what it should have been, because that's not necessarily what I wanted, but I couldn't convey that. And so it took me years to realize what my love language was and be able to say what it was, because you have to let others know what your love language is so they can love on you properly. I'll say it that way. So if you know that you are a physical touch person and you're with someone and they continue to give you gifts, you got to let this person know, hey, you know what? I absolutely appreciate the gifts. Don't stop. Don't stop. But you know what? Instead of buying me that expensive necklace or that bracelet or that watch, I'm just more of a physical touch. You can give me a nice massage or whatever. You can rub my feet, my hands, because I'm more of a physical touch person. So, but you have to say these things, because you can't expect for someone else to know your love language if you haven't expressed that to them. And I didn't express that because I couldn't, because I didn't know what my love language was. For years, I thought it was receiving gifts. I would get a gift, and like I said, I would get excited, and it was all the thank yous. But as I got older, and I started to change as a person, because your love language can change as well. As you start to change as a person, as you start to evolve and you start to grow, then your love language can change as well. So when I was younger, I assumed it was the gifts, and it may have been when I was younger. It may have been about the gifts, but as I started to get older and realized that material things just didn't do it for me as much as those words, those expressions, that did it more for me. But it took years to realize that, and it took a lot of growth. It took a lot of evolution within me as a person for my love language to change. And it can change. You can, like I stated, you can have several love languages. You could, change those as you change. Me, you all know that I'm really big on change. I say this in a lot of my episodes that if you are not changing, that means you are stagnant. And I do not like being stagnant. I just do not. I do not like being comfortable for too long. It just does something to me. So if you're not changing, that means you're not evolving. So that means your love language is not changing, because it can change, and it may not change. It may not change, because I've had conversation with people and they was like, hey, I knew at 20 my love language was physical touch, and here I am 40 and it's still physical touch, because it may not change. But for me, it did. As I started to change and I started to appreciate things differently, then I knew that my love language was changing, and I knew that it just wasn't gifts. It was more the words of affirmation. But for some people, you can have all of them. We probably all have every love language within us, but there's one that may be a little bit higher than the other one. And like I said, for me, it's more the words of affirmation, then it's the gifts, then the physical touch, and it just goes on down the line. But we all have those different love languages, because it's hard to say that, hey, I just have this one love language and that's it. That's just not how we work as people. You may have one that's higher than the other one, but you're not going to have just that particular one and that's it. But as always, I would just love to hear your opinions, your thoughts, your comments, your stories on your love languages and how you have went through life and your love language has evolved, or it has changed, or it has been the same. Whatever it has been, I would just love to hear what is your love language and how do you let people know that that is your love language as well. And as always, this is the Black Educated Tea Podcast.